A lot of pressure on the organization, and that leads to what happened yesterday. The news came initially from the triumvirate of NFL reporters. I don't know why it took three to tell us that Frank Reich would be giving up his play calling duties as head coach of the Panthers, but that is how it played out. Not long after that, Frank Reich himself acknowledged that he is surrendering the reins. Here he is talking about the decision to give up play calling for the Carolina offense.
Obviously, you saw reports out that in turning the play calling duties over to Thomas Brown, those reports are accurate. It's always been part of the plan, something Thomas and I have discussed from the time that he was hired. I'm excited for this for Thomas. I'm excited for our team and our offense. Thomas is a stud. He's a great leader. He's a brilliant offensive mind. We all have a lot of confidence in him. And, sometimes, and I think the timing is right. This has been something, even from the beginning, that I've talked through with Mr. Tepper and Scott from the beginning of the season. I thought that this bye week was going to be a checkpoint. And really been thinking hard about it the last couple of weeks and kind of knew it was leaning this way. But here we are, and I'm excited to turn that over to Thomas and know he's going to do a great job for our team.
That's a very reasonable, rational, plausible explanation. The problem is it feels like a reaction to being 0-6. It feels like a concession that it's just not working, not that something that was planned. And it sounds like it was planned, but it kind of wasn't. It was kind of a tentative plan, and maybe the losses have influenced it. If anything, you would argue, you know what, we're not ready. We just need to get some wins. Before I give you the wheel of this car that I'm driving so that you can do what I do, I should probably make sure I'm driving it properly so you know what to do. Look, and this isn't a specific knock on the Panthers. We know this goes on with every team. There's what they tell us, and then there's the truth, and sometimes they meet and sometimes they don't. The bottom line is this is what they're doing. Whatever the explanation is, whatever the rationalization is, whoever made the call, whoever didn't make the call, it doesn't matter. Moving forward, Thomas Brown's going to call the plays for the Panthers, and moving forward, coming out of this bye week, they are going to be desperately trying to get some wins. They have an owner who is involved. They have an owner who is an impatient person, who is demanding, and who found a way to become a multi-billionaire hedge fund manager, and he's finding out that running an NFL team is not as easy as amassing a multi-billion-dollar fortune, because one he was able to do, and the other one, for the life of him, 5 years in, he can't do.
Yeah, Mike, Frank Reich talked about handing over play calling duties to Thomas Brown eventually, even when he hired Thomas Brown. So, and I have heard from, people who work with him at the Rams. He was there from 2020 to 2022. That Thomas Brown is a really, really good offensive mind, bright young coach, somebody that they felt could be a head coach someday. But when you're making this kind of change at week 7, I have a hard time believing that actually was your plan. If they really thought that Thomas Brown should be the offensive play caller, why wasn't he the offensive play caller at the start of the season? Something doesn't feel right with this to me. If you're going to be the head coach and you are going to have play calling duties and you've got a rookie quarterback, it stands to reason that the head coach is going to be the offensive play caller in your mind, like as you start the season for the entire regular season. Things are not working, so now they have to make a change. Obviously, they are 0-6, and that's fine. Bryce Young is only averaging 5.3 yards per attempt. That's not good enough. His passer rating, I think, is in the 70s. That's not good enough. So I understand why they need to make a change, and as we put the stats up right here, I mean, this is not a good offense. It's just not. They're not even averaging 200 yards per game. They're not averaging 4.5 yards per play yet. They're only averaging 18.7 points per game. This is not a good offense. So I understand why they've got to do something. The bye week is a good opportunity to make changes. But I don't know why you should feel good about this if you are a Panthers fan, other than to say, yes, we kind of need to do something different, and this is something different that they can do in season. But overall, as you look at the picture of it, it's hard to have confidence in a coaching staff that changes play callers 7 games into its tenure. that's not good as baseline anything.
Maybe he's given up the offensive play calling because he's going to take over the defensive play calling. They've given up 42 points each of the last 2 games. And that was a defense that had a lot of great players, and they won the competition for E.J. Evero, the former Broncos defensive coordinator. The Vikings really wanted him. That was supposed to be a strength of the team. The Panthers were supposed to be better than 0-6. Starting the season, you looked at the NFC South, it's wide open. We don't know who's going to emerge. We don't know who's going to be good. So you got the Falcons at 3-3. The Bucks at 3-2, the Saints at 3-3, and there's the Panthers. Which doesn't belong and why? They can't even get a win. I think the pressure is high, and Frank Reich, 100% truthful when he says it's my decision. I have no reason to doubt it. You can put him on the lie detector test. You can put him on sodium pentothal. That's fine. But then after the question, was it your decision? Well, what kind of input, what kind of questions was posed to you by David Tepper? Because, see, I've said this many times, and it's not going to stop me from saying it again. When you are a multi-billionaire owner of anything, one of the benefits of having that much money and power and influence is you never have to tell people what to do. They kind of figure out what you want. What?
Can I say it? Won't someone rid me of this meddlesome priest? Who will rid me of this meddlesome priest? Yeah. That's exactly what David Tepper has to say. Just pull my string and let me say it.
Yeah. And you don't and it's as simple as, well, Frank, you had talked about maybe handing the reins to Thomas. Maybe, do you think this is a good time? Do you think this may be with the bye? Do you think? What do you think? Do you think? It doesn't take much of that to get to the point where Frank Reich realizes, I think that's what the boss wants me to decide to do. So, exercising my full and complete discretion to make that decision, I think that's what I'll do. And the stakes are extra high, Myles, because when they come out of the bye, you know who they got? They got C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans, the guy they didn't draft when they moved up to number 1, the guy who has looked light years more advanced and prepared and effective than Bryce Young. They lose that one, and C.J. Stroud looks great against that defense that's given up 42 points each of the last 2 games, and the offense isn't getting it done. That's when David Tepper, who knows what any of these owners are going to do. Who knows? As the league feels more packed together, when you have a disastrous season, when you came in with reasonable expectations to be somewhat competitive in one of the worst divisions in football, and you're 0-6 and you could be 0-7 after your bye, who knows what David Tepper's going to do? Who knows?
Yeah.
And exactly. that's part of the great theater of the NFL, but who knows? Who knows what Greg Penner's going to do in Denver? Who knows what David Tepper is going to do in Carolina?
Can we put a graphic back up of the statistics between Bryce and CJ? I mean, these 2 rookies, you look at the numbers, it is stark comparison right there. You got CJ Stroud basically completing 70% of his throws if we round up the 0.6. I mean, Bryce Young, 63.2. That's not awful. Look at the passing yards, man. I mean, that's almost double the passing yards CJ Stroud has over Bryce Young. Look at yards per attempt, 7.8 to 5.3. And then obviously the 9-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. And CJ Stroud had his first over the weekend. We got 6-4 for Bryce. I mean, this is a real stark difference between number 2 overall pick and number 1 overall pick. And that is not to say that this is what it's going to look like for their entire careers. It obviously not. I mean, we are so just at the beginning, at the nascent stages of these 2 guys' careers. But man, I mean, to look at the starts, you see one quarterback where everything seems to be tailored toward him and he is thriving in the environment. You see another where, things are not working as well as you would expect, especially given all of the good offensive minds that they have on that coaching staff. I don't necessarily want to say maybe it's this, but who knows? Maybe it is that they've got too many cooks in the kitchen. And for whatever reason, that's just having it not work. But I don't know, man. It is going to be interesting to see what happens when the Texans play the Panthers in a couple weeks.
Hey, we heard all about that in the offseason. Frank Reich, Thomas Brown, Jim Caldwell, Josh McCown.
Yeah.
Offensive minds, all-star coaching staff where David Tepper, there's no salary cap. Let's go out and buy the best coaches we can. Let's put together this great staff, and let's put together a winner right now. And here they are 0-6. And, the other thing about the Stroud-Young comparison, Bryce Young's got a better collection of talent around him on both sides of the ball than Stroud does. Now, people would debate that after 6 weeks. Going into the season, it wouldn't have been a debate. Panthers are the better team. The Texans are the team that were the consensus. They have no chance this year in the AFC. If there was one team that had no chance, it was the Texans. And here they are at 3-3 as the only plausible threat to the Jaguars in the AFC South. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.